Hello everybody and welcome back to more political chatter. In this video we will be talking about my final New Hampshire Democratic primary prediction and how I think that Minnesota Representative Dean Phillips stuns the nation and wins the New Hampshire Democratic primary. So this primary is interesting because of course we have Joe Biden running for re-election for the Democratic nomination, of course. He's being challenged by Minnesota Representative Dean Phillips and Marianne Williamson, an author. She has about 7 or 8 or 9% nationwide on average. Dean Phillips only about 3. But in New Hampshire, what we see is Dean Phillips actually win a pretty significant portion of the vote. 32 he polled at yesterday to Biden's 54, 28, 16. Some not so good, like 10, 7, but 6. Those were quite a while ago, though. So the polling ranges from 6% to 32%. So it's interesting in this race. As for Marianne Williamson, even though she's ahead of Dean Phillips nationwide, Dean Phillips heavily outperforms her in these New Hampshire primary polls. And you see here that Biden is not even a candidate because of this scheduling controversy from the DNC. Because, of course, for ages, just like in the Republican primary, it went Iowa, New Hampshire, Nevada, South Carolina, Super Tuesday. But the DNC voted to change this primary calendar, and this sparked a lot of controversy. Many say that, before I get into that, they moved South Carolina first, and then replacing Iowa, and then I think New Hampshire is second, and Nevada on the same day, and then Georgia, and then Michigan, and then the rest in Super Tuesday, and so on. So it's a big change, and a lot of people said that it would be to protect Biden from an extreme embarrassment in New Hampshire. Because if you go back to 2020, New Hampshire is not Biden friendly, right? Biden placed 5th in New Hampshire. No one knows how he was able to win the nomination, but besides that, he won 5th place in New Hampshire. He got only 8% of the vote, while Amy Klobuchar got 20. I mean, he finished behind Elizabeth Warren at 9. This was a terrible blowout loss for Joe Biden. And when the DNC announced this, a lot of people were saying, this was back when Kennedy was still in the race in the Democratic nomination, when Marianne was, of course, in the race. People said that it was because they wanted to, save Biden from a huge embarrassment in New Hampshire. Because, I don't have it up, but the 1968 Democratic primary in New Hampshire, of course, famous because the incumbent president, Lyndon Johnson, won by just 5% over a Minnesota congressman, not Dean Phillips, but Eugene McCarthy in 1968. And this forced Lyndon B. Johnson to drop out of the race. Then more Democrats jumped in the race, Robert F. Kennedy, Hubert Humphrey, so on and so forth. So it caused this huge chain reaction, and that's what Biden is afraid of with New Hampshire happening again in 2024. So they say it was to make the early primary states more diverse and representative of the entire Democratic Party, as New Hampshire and Iowa are overwhelmingly white. But a lot of people say it's to save Biden from a 1968 situation. But regardless, New Hampshire doesn't care. That's their style of doing things. They do not care what the DNC says, because by state law, they have to be the first in the nation primary. So, therefore, the state Democratic Party, of course, and the state government is, of course, against this rescheduling, going against the DNC. That's why they have, and they are going forth with this first in the nation primary. They are not waiting until South Carolina to happen and then holding theirs on the same day as Nevada. No, they are voting tomorrow, on Tuesday, January 23rd, and they are going against the DNC. Therefore, they have no delegates to the Democratic National Convention because that is their punishment from the DNC. And of course, Biden is all in on this DNC rescheduling of the primary, of course, because people say it was because to save Biden himself from embarrassment in New Hampshire, and he is, of course, going to side with the DNC, so that means that he is not running in New Hampshire. But what does that mean? Embarrass him still by letting Dean Phillips take the state of New Hampshire and getting in the news, getting in the media? No. So the state Democratic Party, many Democrats at least in the state, establishment Democrats, organized a write-in Biden campaign that he has not officially endorsed, but he is praying wins. So this write-in campaign is how he wins. I mean, he will not be on the ballot because he's not a candidate in this race. He has chosen not to run because they are going against DNC rules. But what he is doing is letting this write-in campaign happen with, a campaign for voters to write in his name since he is not on the ballot. And again, he has not endorsed this idea or anything. This is just simply run by state Democrats to save him from losing New Hampshire to Dean Phillips. So if you go up to New Hampshire, you will see many write-in Biden signs, but not really much support for it from what I can see when I was up there this weekend. But still, it leads in polls by quite a lot. But I don't really know how accurate these polls are because when you think about it, Biden is an option in all of these polls, as if he was on the ballot. This is not, these pollsters are not saying to New Hampshire Dems, who are you voting for, Dean Phillips or Marianne Williamson? No, they're saying, who are you voting for, Biden, Phillips, or Williamson? So obviously, Biden as a write-in not being on the ballot, it's so hard to win as a write-in. So his vote totals in these polls is going to be so depressed from the fact that he is a write-in candidate and not on the ballot like he is in these polls, because it's confusing. Even though you have all these signs in New Hampshire saying write-in Biden, it's still going to be so confusing for a lot of people, and a lot of people won't know what to do, and they won't see Biden on the ballot, and they won't even think to write in his name because they've never done that before. And there are just a lot, and they might misspell his name, whatever. There are a lot of things that could go wrong for Joe Biden in this write-in campaign. There are a lot of things wrong, and I don't think that it will be nearly a 61 to 16 to 5% margin. I don't at all. I think that Dean Phillips wins this. I don't think that there is enough support for a write-in campaign for Joe Biden, someone who is hated by the state of New Hampshire and the country, for him to possibly win. This is not just a national thing, with Biden being so disapproved of, 55 to 39% right now. Historically, I think the lowest approval ratings at this time in history. I mean, Trump's were better than 39 to 55%. So, again, this is not just a nationwide thing. It's probably even more apparent in a state like New Hampshire, a live free or die state that is, against taxes, very much values the state of the economy rather than social issues like race and abortion and stuff like that. Biden must be, I couldn't find specific polls coming out of New Hampshire, but Biden must be so incredibly unpopular in New Hampshire, even among Democrats. So I don't know why any Democrats would even write in his name, and Dean Phillips has been running a superb campaign with this, because obviously everyone in New Hampshire will be against the rescheduling of the primary from the DNC, and there are these posters all across New Hampshire being hung up, multiple designs, but the most prominent being a poster of a Joe Biden figure from the back saying, Joe wrote us off. Why write him in? So that is the message. That is the kind of campaign that Dean Phillips is running. And I think that that will be incredibly effective come tomorrow. And that is how he wins. Why write him? Sorry. Why write him in when he has written us off? And that will make a lot of Democrats mad. And if you look at the energy in New Hampshire, Dean Phillips has so much energy. I went to a Dean Phillips event yesterday on Sunday. I could not believe it. This room was jam packed in Hampton, New Hampshire. They had to turn away people trying to get in. I mean, for Dean Phillips, this guy who started at 0% in New Hampshire, you guys remember his announcement speech? It was abysmal. 15 supporters showed up in the state of New Hampshire, and then you had this room jam packed yesterday in Hampton, New Hampshire, and it was one of his smaller events. It was just in a restaurant. I mean, on Friday or something, he had this huge event at his headquarters where it was absolutely packed. You've had Andrew Yang stumping for him across New Hampshire, and there is so much Gene Phillips energy because really, once you hear him, I'm not saying this in a biased way, but even talking with the people at that rally there in New Hampshire at the Phillips rally, once you hear him speak, you gotta love him. I mean, if you're considering writing in Biden or voting for Dean Phillips, after you hear Dean Phillips speak, you're gonna be, oh yeah, no question, I'm voting for Dean Phillips. And you know what? They will not hear from Joe Biden at all. They will hear Dean Phillips in person on the news or whatever, but they are not going to see Joe Biden at all. He is missing, completely missing from the state of New Hampshire. He has not mentioned this primary once because he is afraid that he is going to lose, and he doesn't want to act like it is a priority of his, even though it is, because then it will mean that he is embarrassed if he does lose the state. So he's trying to keep a low profile here, while the Democratic National Committee, is pouring literal millions into this little write-in campaign for Biden, getting the mayor of Boston to come up and campaign for this because they are so afraid of Dean Phillips winning this. And after that rally yesterday, there is so much Dean Phillips energy in the state of New Hampshire. People were literally excited for it. Random Democrats, people, when they were it was a Q&A, people were saying that they heard about him like 5 days ago, one lady said, and then she was all in for him at this rally. I mean, um, he is there is so much energy for him in New Hampshire. He is running an excellent campaign, holding so many campaign events. He has good money. I mean, his net worth is so much. He's worth like $170 million or something. So he does have some money to put into this race at least. Maybe 70 million. I'm not sure. But there's so much energy for Dean Phillips here in New Hampshire. And you know who there's no energy for is Joe Biden. Because he is a write-in candidate. He is the unpopular president incumbent who everyone hates. And just after that rally, I don't know how really anyone could vote for him. And it's not like there are any events for this write-in campaign for Biden. He is completely missing from New Hampshire. And his only supporters, it looks like, are establishment Democrats trying to save him from embarrassment and just holding up signs outside of the Dean Phillips campaign office. So that is why I think that Dean Phillips wins this New Hampshire primary. I know, it's either this. Either Dean Phillips wins by a point or two, or maybe loses by a point or two, or he gets absolutely crushed and Biden wins like 80% of the vote. One of those two things will happen. There is no happy medium, and I am going with the Dean Phillips wins option. I think that he wins 45.9% of the vote to Joe Biden's 42.8%. That is a 3.1 margin for Dean Phillips in New Hampshire. Marianne Williamson wins 8.9%. Dean Phillips has apparently taken a lot of that vote away from her, and other candidates win 2.4%. Of course, there are so many candidates on the New Hampshire primary ballot that others are bound to get 2.5%. So I think that Dean Phillips wins, and he has momentum. heading into other states, because the media has to cover this. I mean, they do cover him a little bit, but they have to. I mean, after he wins the state of New Hampshire, and this might very well be a 1968 situation where the incumbent president loses New Hampshire, and maybe he lets, and then maybe that is a sign to him that he needs to step down, and let another Democrat win the nomination. And then we could see people like Gretchen Whitmer, J.B. Pritzker, Josh Shapiro, whoever it is, join the race, and then we have an extreme 1968 situation. That is what Dean Phillips is hoping for. I mean, he obviously does not want to be president himself, but that is exactly what he wants to happen. Is that he wins New Hampshire, and it's a sign that Biden needs to get out of the race. So thank you all for watching this video. I really hope you all enjoyed. Leave a comment, and I will see you all next time.